Good morning.
Morning.
We
Hi.
are doing an interview with Errol Hepker, and the purpose of the interview here at the JCC this morning is for the Roots to Boost project for the Dallas Jewish Historical Society. I'd like to start, if I may, with asking you to tell me as much as you possibly can about the history of your grandparents and where they came from in Europe or Russia prior to the experience in South Africa.
With pleasure. On my dad's side, my grandfather came from Goldingen, my grandmother came from Riga. They married in 1910, July 1910, and when I got married, my dad gave me the wedding ring that said JL to JH. I married Jennifer Leslie and I'm Julius Hepker, although you call me Errol.
Oh,
So they came to South Africa, in about 1922, 25. My grandfather was a white trader, as they called. He used to go into Matabele land and trade with the Matabele. And then led, with Cecil John Rhodes, he led the Rhodes column back into what became Rhodesia, which was Matabele land. And they were very, very successful in the lumber business. They had a business called Rhodesian Timbers. There are a lot of stories about him, and good stories, and I wasn't there, but good stories. And I guess that's enough on that side of the family. On the other side of the family were the Burmans. My grandfather, my mother's father, ran the gauntlet out of Poland, got into South Africa, was uneducated. As a matter of fact, he wrote his final school exams, which we called matric. He was sitting next to his eldest son. He believed in education. He ultimately, from selling coffee to miners, he became one of the biggest real estate tycoons in South Africa. We always thought it was a wonderful family, terrific family to come from, solid stock. And then we found out many years later, the quality of the family came from his wife, who was a very quiet woman, who comes from a long, long line of Polish Rabbonim by the name of Rokeach. The Rabbi Rokeach, the Rabbi at Belz, that's my heritage. One would think I'd be more frum.
So this the Belzer Hasidim?
Yes, yes.
Uh-huh.
There's something in here. I get like hay fever.
Oh.
Hey, no, I'm good, but I'm like locking up. But no big deal. It'll come out on tape.
Oh.
So
she
is
comes
that
from-
sufficient for you? I mean, it's a
Yeah.
a rich background.
Very rich background.
The
So
first engraved image of a Jewish rabbi was that of my great-great-grandfather when he was the Rebbe at Belz.
Uh-huh. So then, at what point did these grandparents come to South Africa?
Well, my grandfather must have come, on my mother's side, must have come in the very early 1900s, 1910, 1915. He married my grandmother, who was 18 years of age. She came from South Africa. She was born in South Africa. She was born in a place called Ladysmith in the Cape. There are two Ladysmiths in South Africa, towns, cities of Ladysmith. And they married. She was 18. She married because he was finding his feet financially, and she thought that was a good idea to help her family. They had a small family. She was one of 10. She was the eldest of 10. So she figured if she married this guy, he'd help. And he did. And he did that. It was a wonderful marriage. She had 4 children. 4. 5. I'm sorry, I can't count so good. I'm in the financial business. I can't count at all.
And so then tell me about your parents.
My dad was born in Rhodesia, was the first generation of Bulawayo residents to be born. He was a phenomenal athlete. He finished up playing for counties rugby. He was a wing three-quarter. He played in England. He played in Rhodesia. He loved athletic undertakings. He was the middle son, there was a daughter, a son, and then my dad. They moved to South Africa, Johannesburg, eventually after his father had passed away. And there he met my mother. When he met my mother, he happened to see her photograph on the dressing bedside table of his best friend, who was dating her at the time, and they were actually engaged. And he saw the picture, he said, "Is that your future wife?" And his friend said, "Yes." He says, "Oh my God, she's got a very big mouth." Because my mother did have a big smile. My mother was an actress, and her great achievement was acting in London, and the one play, I stand open to correction, was Judgment Day, where she acted opposite who became Sir Laurence Olivier. So that was also, those are the good things. I've got uncles who are Gonovim, you're not just Jewish.
So how did your father get your mom away from this other guy?
Well, they met, and this was his best buddy, and they met, and the funny thing is this, that his best friend Norman took a liking to the girl that my dad was taking out at the time. And my mother and her fiance broke off, and my dad and mom met. They married in 1939, 1940, during the war. My mother always said it was a small wedding. She would like to have a huge wedding, but because of the war, it was very small. And they were married together for, I think, about 45 years when my dad passed away. He had cancer. My mom, I brought her from South Africa, and she lived here for, about 15 years. And she passed away in 2003, 2004.
So how many children were in your immediate family?
Just me and a sister, who does live in Dallas.
So tell me about your childhood in South Africa. What type of a school did you go to?
Well, initially, I went to the same schools as most people. They called them government schools. These were schools that we have here, like the regular state-run schools, but they were run by the government. And I had a very interesting and very comfortable early youth life at school, which is different to the United States, because you have junior school and senior school. There's no middle school. And I was okay in athletic undertakings and pursuits in junior school, and then was sent away to boarding school, because my mother thought that was very fashionable. And I regret that all my life. I mean,
where did you go to boarding school?
I went to Grahamstown, which is a city about 2 days train ride from Johannesburg, where my family lived. I was there for 5 years. I did all my schooling there. I developed some athletic abilities while I was in school that I pursued, and I wasn't happy. I never did like going away. I didn't think, it was an old-fashioned thing. When there were no schools in the city you lived in, you sent your children away. My mother seemed to feel that would give me the best possible education and background. Well, it deprived me somewhat of the ability to have relationships with people. I didn't know how to interact, especially with girls, because it was an all-boys school. And that was a bit tough, and something I do regret, but I had no control over that.
So how old were you when you finished out that school?
I was just 18, just turned 18 when I finished.
And that was the point at which you would then go into college?
Went to university and began pursuing a degree in commerce. Actually wanted to be a doctor, which then I could have found a nice Jewish girl, but I wanted to be a doctor. And I did a stupid thing. I took an aptitude test, and they said, "No, you are really designed to be in the commercial world." So I went to do a Bachelor of Commerce. When I was nearing the close of my education, I took a summer job, and the unfortunate mistruth hit me between the eyes, which was, "What are you doing, taking money from your parents? Go and earn your own money. How easy it is." So I quit college and I did some night school, but I went into the life insurance industry and the regular general insurance industry in the early 60s. And I've been in that field ever since. Except for a brief period that I had one of the well-known area, do you call it area carpet, wall-to-wall carpet fitting outlets in Johannesburg. And we used to supply Johannesburg, Durban, Cape Town. It was good until I took on a partner. Then I went back to the life insurance financial field.
When you were a child in South Africa, did you have an opportunity to become involved in any Jewish youth groups?
You know, for some strange reason, given the fact that my grandfather was such a chassid, he was such an important figurehead in the Jewish community, my mother's father, who had the first minyan of what was then the Berea Shul in his own living room, who was the life president. My mother had an attitude of, and don't forget the war was on, my mother had an attitude of don't make too much noise about being a Jew. And that sort of left me with mixed feelings about belonging. We were Orthodox, but we didn't keep kosher or live an Orthodox life. My mom was an actress. She was more concerned about how the appearances were. I mean, it was just her way. And we didn't have a very frum Jewish life. We certainly didn't keep kosher. And there's a lot of things I missed about that. Whatever Jewish attitude I have today is essentially self-taught. I woke up one day and I said, I'd been married, I think, 4 months. I said to my wife, Jennifer, you know, what happens one day if we have children? How do I bring them up? So I started going to shul on Friday nights. I made it because you know in South Africa, Friday nights, you can't get into a shul. Saturday morning, you can't find a minyan. That's a joke, but it's really, everybody goes Friday night. Not everybody goes Saturday.
So you finished the schooling and you went on to go into the insurance world. At some point, you met your wife. How did that happen?
Don't forget what I told you was that I was in a boys' school.
Yes.
And when I got out of that situation, I didn't know what you did really with girls. I mean, my buddies knew how to interact. I really had little experience. So I thought that there was safety in numbers, and I used to schlep girls over a weekend, 4 or 5. You know, I was a wilde chai. I mean, it was like I was let out of a cage. And we lived in a neighborhood that was relatively new. And my mom told me that this family had moved in down the road. This was on June the 20th, 1960, precisely. I went down to these people's house. Apparently, I knew the girl because we took swimming lessons together when we were 4 years old. I didn't have a clear recollection of that event, but that's what I was told. So I went down to see her, welcome her to the neighborhood. And this little person came in wearing a pink suit and black hair, all doodled up. And I looked at her and I said, you, I'm going to marry. And we've been married now 49 years, thank God. That's that little person you met.
Yes.
Not a bad story.
And you subsequently had children.
We had 3 girls. God bless them. They all live in America. I think that's a picture of one of them up there. But who knows? You know, they change their hair and stuff. And it's a picture. One lives in Florida. Got 2 little daughters, the most beautiful children ever. I don't think they eat because they're very, very thin. I think they starve. Then we have in Dallas, we have my eldest grandson, as we say, Kana Hore, is 23 years old. He's a Gazunta. The day he was born, we put a Dallas Cowboy football in the crib. And he's been a fanatic ever since. I mean, athletic-wise, he's a genius. About anything else, it's not important. And he has a sister who's 19 now, is in college in Arkansas. And then I have two little ones, who one's still here around the corner, the JCC.
Mhm.
Two little ones, 5 and 6 years old. 5 and 6, I'm right.
Tell
So from
me-
23 to 5.
Okay, so tell me about your decision to leave South Africa. At what point you made that decision, and what were the reasons for making that decision?
Weird. But then nobody said that I was normal. I used to lie in the dorm, and I'd never been a good sleeper. I used to watch the moonlight on the ceiling. This is weird but true story. Watch the moonlight on the ceiling and think to myself of the day that I would come to America and become a success. Go west, my son. And from that early age, I mean, I was 14, 13, and I had that desire. Jennifer and I got married. We were very happy. We were happy like most, thank God, happy couples. We had our differences from time to time. I was always right, by the way. But after 17 years of married life, friends of ours came over. It was a Christmas day in South Africa that summer. We had a big piece of property. We were sitting under a palm tree, and this friend of mine said, "You know what? We're going to live in America." And I said, "Really? I've always wanted to live in America." And Jennifer turned to me and said, "So did I." I said, "But you lived there already." She said, "But I've always wanted to go back." Can you believe we'd been married for all that period of time? I had no idea she was willing to go back. And boom, we went. It was a dream to come to America, the land of opportunity.
How did you pick Dallas?
Dallas picked me. At the time that I came, it was 1980, the United States began a different form of life insurance. This type of life insurance was developed by a dyslexic accountant in South Africa and took the world of the industry worldwide by storm. America held off because of the huge profits that were made in the life insurance industry up to that point. And they had to change. They were forced basically to change. But I had experience in this area.
What type of life insurance
It was
was
called universal life as opposed to whole life. Universal was the common term. And the American consul said, well, it would help if I had a job offer. So I wrote to 18 companies, and obviously I got, because of my track record, I got job offers. And I thought I'd like to live on the East Coast. I got a great opportunity. I had a great opportunity in Boston, but we were there in winter and it wasn't that pleasant. By the way, I drove from New York to Boston and was stopped. They had the heaviest snowstorm in history. And the cop said to me, "How can you be on the roads in these conditions? Everybody is warned to stay at home." I said, "I don't have a choice. I've got to go to Boston." He said, "Where are you from?" I said, "South Africa." "Oh," he said, "you've had a lot of experience in those conditions. Carry on." I'd never seen snow in my life.
Yeah.
You see, it's a true story. Anyway, we went to Boston, we went to several other eastern seaboard cities, and I kind of wanted to go to Virginia, but I was keeping it for last. And a group from Dallas were pursuing me. They heard I was coming, because they'd bought a company in South Africa. And I had a relative who was with that company in South Africa who mentioned to them that I was emigrating. And they literally forced me to come and have an interview in Dallas. I was going to come on my own until a friend of mine, the same friends who sat in our yard, our garden, and decided to come to America, they said to me, "You're going to Dallas, what if you like it?" So I said, okay. We packed all of us up, we left New York, and we came to Dallas to check it out. We actually finished up in Arlington. We thought that was Dallas. We had no idea. And the booking was done by a relative of mine who I've never met, who was a travel agent in the Bronx. And we arrived here, my eldest daughter looked around at this desolate, it was winter, desolate scenery, but there was no snow. She says, "I like it here." And Dallas found me. I didn't find Dallas. The economy here was good. The rest of the country in 1980 wasn't so good.
So what point of year did you move here? What month?
Well, we actually got citizenship in 81.
No, but I mean, I'm curious because you moved here in 1980. How
No,
did you?
we went back to South Africa.
Oh, so you didn't come for the heat wave of 1980. You missed that.
We missed the heat wave. We were here investigating. I felt it was a bit warm, but I mean, what did I know? We were here, we heard about it, we were in Dallas, and we were here briefly.
Yeah.
We went back to South Africa. Because of this insurance thing, I had 18 job offers, which was very helpful for immigration. And the consul said, look, you've come, you're not going back. And I said, but hey, we haven't sold our house, we've made no arrangements, that's what you told us to do. And we were given a unique passport to go back to South Africa and pack up. So we finished up coming 1981, about the middle of the year, just before Yontavim. Yeah. Didn't know a shul. I went to, friends of mine told me, big South African community. It's called Teferet. And that's where I went.
Right around the corner from here.
Yes,
actually.
it is.
Yeah.
Then we went to Sheriff, and then I wandered around and I went back to Teferet. I almost joined Rabbi Roden. I went to Teferet. I became a very close friend of Rabbi Cohen, who was the rabbi there at the time. Then we went to live in Florida because that was my dream. I semi-retired. Went to live in Florida. We had a beautiful house on the water on the west coast, and joined a shul there. The rabbi and I and Jennifer family were still very close friends. In fact, they came last summer and stayed in our home. Came back to Dallas, didn't want to. While I was in Florida, Rabbi Cohen separated, as you know, from Teferet,
Yes, I know.
started his own shul, and I was a founding member with him. We came back to Dallas. I had an injury. I got injured on a fishing boat in Alaska, and I couldn't climb up the stairs anymore in Florida. See, I used this thing. So we came back home. Although we have a daughter on the East Coast in Miami, but we've got 2 daughters here and 4 grandchildren, so they outweigh the 4 children, parents and grandchildren in Florida.
So you're back home to Dallas.
We're back, as we say, home. We're back home. We're not moving again.
I don't blame you.
I haven't got the cash. It's enough. I mean, I'm schlepping stuff that I schlepped from South Africa. What I brought, I didn't need. The good stuff that I need, I left. You see, you don't know these things.
Well, is there anything you miss about South Africa?
Yes, the cast iron bath I used to bath the dogs in.
Ah.
I missed that. No, what did I need it here for? I needed it. Do I miss South Africa? I've never been back. All the South Africans, I think almost every one of the South Africans have been back. I was told by a friend who came originally from Czechoslovakia, and he got away during the war to England. He said to me, don't go back for several years, because if you do, you may have regrets and then you won't return to America. So I made it my business not to go back. However, here's the strange story. Because of the success in the industry, and because I began an association, a relationship with banks in South Africa who used our expertise, my partners and mine, to give advice to their important clients. I was approached at a meeting in Dallas, which was an international meeting they had for the industry. I was approached by English bankers and insurance people to quit the stupidity living in Dallas and go to England where I belonged. And they literally put a con on me. They phoned me every day. I mean, it sounds like I was important. I wasn't important. I just had a little bit of expertise. But they pestered me, and eventually I said, okay. And after 2, 3, I don't know, short period of time living in Dallas, we packed everything up and we went to England. We bought a house in London, and I mean, I don't know why I did it. I felt I had to do it, and literally the day I got there, I realized, listen, I don't belong here. And when I told the family, my sister was still in South Africa, I'm going home. They said, back to South Africa? I said, no, I'm going home. I'm going to Dallas. So we went back to Dallas. We lasted in England 6 months, 17 days, 5.5 hours. It was too long. You can't go from here to there. You can go from there to here. You can go from South Africa to England. And the South Africans, from the sugar, they were more English than the English. They were busy drinking tea. The British had stopped already. They were drinking coffee. And they made like they were more British than the British. I couldn't stand it. I came home. These are the people that I loved.
So tell me, here in Dallas, I know you're very busy with your business. Are you involved in any other community activities here?
Sadly, no. I do a little bit of things for the shul on occasion. As I say, I was on the board of one of the shuls, no longer. I served my term, let's put it that way. It wasn't that I was left for any reason. But no, I'm not. I'm lazy and I'm old. And I've got 3 new children, 3 greyhound dogs, who I love and adore. And you know what? I'd rather sit at home with Jennifer, my wife, and the dogs. I'm actually with Sugar. I've got the 3 dogs that are huge. I've got 3 cats, and we have a macaw. So it's a menagerie in my house. And we stay home. We very, very rarely go out. We're lazy. We try to do a little bit here and there, but not to the extent that I sometimes feel guilty. I do. I think I should do more for the community. I work and I watch television.
You're doing what makes you happy.
I'm doing what I'm happy. I've got news. We fight like crazy. I'm happy being with her. That's what counts.
Absolutely.
So I wouldn't even trade my dogs for her. Although there's a good chance sometimes. You know, they don't talk back.
Let's step back a moment in time. When you first came to Dallas, I know you knew a couple of people here. You probably had a couple of South Africans that you knew. But in terms of the general community in Dallas, how was your adjustment? How did you find them? Were the people welcoming here to you?
With the exception of one individual, who, for whatever reason, when he saw me that first time at Teferet, he knew me, he knew who I was, he knew what I did. He literally shunned me. With the exception of this individual, I had the most pleasant experience with South Africans imaginable. In those days, we were a tight-knit community. We basically all knew one another. From my point of view, we would have done for each other to whatever extent it took to help each other. It was a wonderful relationship between the South African people in my bailiwick, in my area, my age, when we came in the early 80s. It was terrific. And now you've got, over the years, such a tremendous influx. You know, there's so many I've never heard of people.
What about the outside of the South African community, just the Jewish community in general? How did you find the welcome?
Oh, everybody welcomed. I mean, it was as expected. I mean, I didn't expect any different. It was, to me, we were, I don't know if anybody had a different experience, but we were welcomed with open arms. There was just no question that people were proud to hear. They were proud to be Americans and hear that the South African community chose to come and live in America, and particularly to come and live in Dallas. So the Jewish people that we met and the non-Jewish people that we met were very, very helpful and proud that we chose to do this.
Were there any particular challenges that you faced in terms of...
Language was a challenge. We spoke a little bit of a different language. To be understood, expressions we'd use, and they'd look at me blankly or misunderstand. I'm trying to think of one as I speak.
Give me an example.
Yes, I knew you'd say that, and I can't think. Oh my maybe something will come to me. Let's keep talking. There's one that means in exactly opposite the way what we say in South Africa and in England, and as you say it, and I can't think what it is. I knew you jumped that on me.
That's okay, we'll come to it. Are there any particular traditions that you brought with you from South Africa that might be different from what we have here?
Not that I know of. Pardon me. I still go to shul Friday nights.
Uh-huh.
I don't very often go on a Saturday. Rabbi Cohen often said what I said. You can't get a seat on a Friday night in South Africa. It was the way I was. No, I don't think there were any special traditions, no.
What about foods?
Food?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, mouth waters when you think about biltong, which Americans call jerky. Oh, that, you could kill for that.
Do you have a source of it here?
I have a source, there's a source in South Carolina, but it's, you know, put on weight, I managed to lose some, so I don't want to start all over again. And I used to make my own. The only thing I used to enjoy it wet. So by the time it was ready, I'd eaten it all. So I'm a very sharing person, but when it came to biltong, I didn't give to many people.
Why don't you make it anymore?
It was a hassle. First of all, my machinery was 220 volt, 240 volt. I can't remember what the South African was, DC as opposed to AC. And so the dryers and the stuff up, and so I had to unplug the dryer in the laundry room, where the dryers and the washer was, and use that plug, because that is a 240, 220, I can't remember. So it was an inconvenience to my wife. Are you making biltong again? I've got to dry the laundry. Well, biltong comes first.
Right.
I miss it. I do miss the biltong.
Yeah, I remember, I've had it once because there was a young man who unfortunately passed away way too early in his life. He used to make kosher biltong.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Kosher, okay.
Yeah.
There were a number of South Africans that made it. They still make. I don't have a connection anymore.
Well, I don't either, unfortunately. Are there any other things that you'd like to share with us about your family life, your things that you can remember, things that are important to you, things that you'd like your children to know about your experiences?
I'd like my children to have a better grasp of our family heritage, which I only enjoyed and recognized later in life. My dad used to speak with pride about his parents. My mother spoke with pride about her parents and alluded to a history. I would like my children to recognize their roots more as Jews than as South Africans. They're Americans, and this is where they owe an allegiance. But I'd like them to have a better handle on what their heritage is.
How do you think they're going to be able to get that?
Certain members of the family, I've got a big family that live in Atlanta, who are investigators of the family history. They could get it from them.
Have you talked with their children
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah. Now I'm having a bat mitzvah, my granddaughter in Florida, and suddenly that daughter, the middle daughter, is developing a need to know more about the history at this point. My eldest daughter, I don't think it bothers. She doesn't care. It's not an important issue in her life. She is a most wonderful human being. But these are not important things in her life, which I think is sad, because I think if it's passed on, not only the family history in Europe, but the family history in South Africa. The European, I think, is more important, but just as, almost as important as South African. I don't think she cares much. My middle daughter, as I say, has had a little bit of an interest. My baby, who's worked at the JCC, she, I think, may be the one who would carry on that connection and those ties.
Well, I think from what you said, if you've got the connection to the Belzer Hasidim, that's certainly a point of a very significant point that the children should learn about, and the grandchildren that should learn about. I mean, that's.
I think, you can't force anybody to do anything.
No, but at some point, now that you've at least brought that to their attention, perhaps at some point they'll investigate.
I hope, because it's something that is important. Know your roots. Know your roots.
Exactly.
And I hope so. I mean, we're lucky. We've got a good life. It hasn't been easy. Would I have done better if I remained in South Africa? Who knows? My colleagues were very successful. Who knows? Some South Africans have come here and been phenomenally successful, and all power to them, and good for them. Fact is, I'm happy here. I wouldn't go anywhere else. I mean, it's too late anyway. I mean, if ever I thought of going anywhere, ever, it would be Israel, and certainly not back to South Africa.
Well, I think you've certainly established your roots here at this point.
This is my country. This is my country. It's my chosen country. You know, you become an American, you swear allegiance to the flag, you feel a feeling towards the country that is more, I would say, powerful, for want of a better word, than being born accidentally into the environment, into this nation. We know how tough it was to be. We had to go through all sorts of things to become an American citizen. We really had to go through a great deal. It wasn't laid at our feet. And the little testing that we did to prove that we could write and read, those were nonsensical and unnecessary. But we knew how many presidents there were. We knew who the presidents were. We were educated in American history, which I think was very important.
Absolutely.
And Americans weren't. They didn't know.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. So we're happy. We're happy. I wouldn't change. I wouldn't change. There's some things I'd like to do over, but certainly not come to America, and certainly not come to Dallas. I just wish, I'm hoping there's supposed to be a big tsunami that they predicted, and then Dallas would be a seaside resort. That's what I kept hearing. No, really, there was going to be on December last year, everything was, the pity was Florida was going underwater, but Dallas was going to be on the coast.
Well.
So I kept my boat until then.
Oh. Well, hopefully that won't happen in our lifetime.
No. I miss the water. I'd love to be at the ocean.
I do too. Hopefully you'll have opportunities to still come to see them. Yeah.
I hope I've been able to put in what the words are, the things that we used to say. My goodness, I can't think. There's several expressions that
Well,
are
I
used.
know that you pronounce Bubby differently than I do.
Bubba.
Bubba, yeah.
Bubba,
Yeah.
Bubba. Well, I called my one grandmother Guggy because my eldest cousin, the firstborn, gave the name. Grandma, because on that side the eldest grandson gave the name. You see, like I said, my mother was very anglicized, and so we didn't use Bobby and Zadie or anything like. We were English, and that was a regret. But that has nothing to do with being in America.
No.
That is a regret. I'd like to be more Jewish.
You still have the opportunity. You can, you're an adult learner. You have the opportunity to study, and please God, you'll take the opportunity when you choose to.
Yep. Well, listen, I still like to read and be informed about the history of my country. I watch these things on TV, History Channel, learn about the United States, things that happened, how they happened, trying to determine if there's an answer for why they happened. because truthfully I feel very strongly. I've never been back to South Africa. What for? This is my country, and that's where I'd focus any attention on learning. Jewish learning, I'm proud to be a Jew, but to go and study Talmud or I would fail.
Oh, I don't think so.
I would fail.
I
You're
do.
a sweetheart. What are you kidding me?
No, you wouldn't fail.
I would.
You
I
start
would.
at a level that's comfortable for you and go from there. Don't say never.
And then my forefathers going to look down and say, Schmendrick, what are you doing? What are you doing? You should have done this years ago. Yes, I mean, at my age.
I promise you, I know a lot of men your age who are starting at a level that's comfortable for them, with rabbis who accept the level that they're at.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, I have a few friends who are rabbis who I'm close to, and I'm quite certain that they'd be delighted
Yes, they
to
would.
give me their very best assistance in pursuing something. Who knows, like you say, who knows? Who knows? That's a tragedy. Vuves, that we are the last generation that has any Yiddish knowledge. The language is dead after we go. The Yiddish accent is gone when this generation goes. And that was a most beautiful, rich, kept the Jews together in Europe during the war when they were being annihilated and murdered. To me, that's my opinion, that was the Yiddish, that was the glue that kept us together. And who speaks Yiddish today? Now, where did I learn to speak Yiddish? That's a good question.
You tell me.
Oh, yes. My Boba, my grandma, who was born in Ladysmith, Cape, couldn't speak a word of Yiddish because she was brought up in South Africa. Her parents spoke, but they insisted they spoke English or Afrikaans to educate their children. So she didn't speak, but she hired a driver. His name was Maritz. And he says to me one day, "Kannst du Yiddish reden?" I said to him, "What?" He said, "Don't you speak Yiddish?" He says to me in Yiddish, "Didn't your Baba teach you to speak Yiddish?" I said, "Grandma doesn't speak Yiddish. She knows from him Schuldig, that's all she knows." Which is, excuse me, I don't understand. So he, the black driver, taught me all the Yiddish I knew. Because he used to drive a horse and cart for what they called a bag and bottle man, who used to drive his horse and cart through suburbia in Johannesburg, shouting bags and bottles. And now this black guy became his driver, and he progressed to become an automobile driver. My grandmother took him on, and he taught me to speak Yiddish, the little that I know. Now that heritage is gone. Yiddish is finished. When we go, it's over, which is a terrible shame. I think it's like Latin. Who speaks Latin today? Yiddish is gone. It's a wonderful, it's descriptive. It's so descriptive that you can't say in Yiddish in English what you can describe in Yiddish. A shayna meidl. I mean, uich. Even uich.
That's such Tom.
But tam, geschmack. What's in English? Very good. Very nice. In Britain, South Africa, lekker, which reminds me, you know there's a restaurant here called Lekker. South Africans started a restaurant.
Where is it?
It's on Preston Road, just south of Frankfurt.
Oh.
And it's called Lekker because lekker means good, great, terrific,
I
nice,
did not
tasty.
know. I'll have to try it.
Oh yes, it's on the east side of Preston, just south of Frankfurt, next to Hook, Line and Sinker. They paid me something for advertising.
Oh, I'll try it.
I'm
Do
going
they
to tell them I
do
have
they
it.
have typical South African food?
It is, yes, it is.
Okay.
And a lot of South
Okay.
Africans help them in preparation, which makes it a little more authentic.
Okay.
And some of the stuff is, well, for anybody's taste to die for. We've been there with neighbours, and my one neighbour, like, oh, she's into desserts. I may look like I'm a dessert person. I never touch desserts. I really don't.
I'm gonna put it on my.
Put it
bucket
on your
list.
hit list.
Okay, I will do
Hit
that.
list. Your list, your
My
bucket
bucket
list.
list,
That's
my
right.
bucket list.
That's right. I still can't think of, oh, I'm gonna regret this.
You'll call me later. You've been terrific.
I'll call you. You're terrific.
Well, thank
I
you.
want to tell you, I could have been speaking to somebody else. I mean, I would never have had the same feeling of relaxation.
Well, you've been.
If I could breathe, I'd feel even better.
This has been a wonderful interview. I really appreciate you taking.
You think
time.
so?
Yeah, I appreciate you taking your time this morning,
It was wonderful meeting
Appreciate
you. It was
getting-
wonderful doing it.
getting-
Thank you.
getting your story, and we promise we'll send you a copy of the tape.
My mother would be proud.
Your mother would be proud. You've been wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.